You're watching another True Villain commentary.
What's going on, everyone? So, yeah, Modern Warfare 4 is looking good right now. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it isn't. The gameplay looks smoother, the systems look better, they're bringing back things people actually ask for. And for once, it feels like there's some direction behind the game, but at the same time, if you really pay attention, there are still a lot of concerns that could completely ruin the experience. And honestly, some of these are the exact same problems we've been dealing with for years, which is kinda crazy when you think about it, because it's like we're so close to a great COD, but these small things keep holding it back. Let's start with the biggest one, and yeah, you probably already know what it is: the spawn system. Because if they stick with this squad spawn system again, we're gonna have issues. And I'm telling you right now, this is one of those things that ruins the game without people even realizing it at first. Because you'll be playing and everything feels fine, and then after a few matches, you start noticing people spawning behind you, teammates flipping spawns randomly, no real sense of control, and it just turns the whole map flow into chaos. And the reason older CODs felt so good wasn't just the maps, it was the predictability. You could control areas, you could understand spawns, you could actually learn the game. And right now, that's been missing. So if MW4 doesn't fix this, yeah, people are gonna get frustrated fast. Now, right after that, we gotta talk about matchmaking and lobbies, because this is basically guaranteed to be controversial no matter what they do. Skill-based matchmaking, disbanding, lobbies, all of that stuff is still a question. And let's be honest, this is one of the biggest reasons people get burned out so quickly now. Because it's not just about winning or losing, it's about how the matches feel. If every game feels forced, if every lobby feels sweaty, if you can't stay in the same lobby and build any kind of rivalry or consistency, it just doesn't feel like classic COD anymore. And I'm not even saying remove everything completely, but there has to be a better balance, because right now it feels like the system controls the experience more than the player does, and that's a problem. Another one that doesn't get talked about enough but actually matters a lot is visual recoil and muzzle smoke. And yeah, this might sound like a small detail, but it really isn't, because if you can't see clearly during gunfights, it doesn't matter how good the mechanics are, you're gonna lose fights. You shouldn't lose. And that's one of the most frustrating things in any shooter. And we've already seen this be an issue before, where the screen gets filled with smoke, recoil, effects, particles all over the place, and suddenly tracking enemies becomes harder for no real reason. And if that comes back in MW4, people are gonna notice immediately. Like, yeah, it might look realistic, but it doesn't feel good to play. And at the end of the day, gameplay should always come first. Now, this next one is interesting. No bloom hipfire. And on paper, that sounds like a good thing, right? Because bloom has always been one of those mechanics people complain about. But at the same time, changing something that core can completely mess with weapon balance, because now hipfire becomes way more consistent, which sounds good until certain guns become way too strong up close, and suddenly there's less variety in how people play. So this is one of those changes that could go either way. It could feel amazing, or it could completely break close range fights, depending on how they balance it. And right now, we just don't know yet. Now, we gotta talk about Scorestreaks and Specialist, because this is something a lot of people were hoping to see changes to. And so far, there's nothing really confirmed, and that's disappointing because systems like Specialist actually gave players another way to play the game. It wasn't just about streaks. It was about building your character over time during a match. And without that, it feels like we're still missing some depth. And again, this isn't something that ruins the game instantly, but it's something that adds long-term replayability. And without it, things can start to feel repetitive faster than they should. Another one that could be a real problem is the explosion mechanic, where you can get knocked off your feet without actually dying. And I'm not gonna lie, this one is kind of funny because it sounds cool. Like, yeah, cinematic moments, explosions, throwing your character around. That sounds great until it starts happening in actual gameplay. Because if you're constantly getting knocked down mid-fight or losing control of your character, that's going to get annoying real quick, especially in a competitive setting. So this is one of those features that sounds good in theory, but could easily become one of the most complained about things if it's not handled properly. Now, content and map count. This is always a big one because 12 maps at launch just doesn't feel like enough anymore, especially when you realize that content is split across multiple modes. You've got standard multiplayer, you've got larger modes, you've got smaller modes, and suddenly that number feels even smaller. And we've seen this before where the game launches and within a few weeks people are already tired of the rotation. So unless those maps are actually really strong and they support the game consistently after launch, this is going to come up again like it always does. And finally, probably the most important long-term concern is post-launch support, because none of this matters if the game isn't supported properly after release. If updates are slow, if bugs don't get fixed, if systems don't get adjusted, if communication disappears, the game is going to fall off. And we've seen that happen too many times already, and people are already questioning things like weekly challenges. Will they return? Will progression? Will feel rewarding? Will feedback actually lead to changes? And that's the real test, not what happens at launch, but what happens after. So when you look at all of this together, it's actually kind of funny because MW4 is in a really good position right now. Like, it genuinely looks like a step in the right direction. But at the same time, all of these concerns are still there. And these are not small things. These are the things that decide whether a game lasts or not. Because we've seen COD launch strong before and then slowly fall apart because of these exact issues. And that's why people are excited but still cautious at the same time. So yeah, the game looks good, but this is what you need to watch because this is what's actually going to matter a few weeks after launch. Not the trailers, not the hype, but how these systems feel when people actually start playing. Let me know what you think. Which one of these concerns matters the most to you? And if you think they're actually going to fix them this time or not. And if you're new around here, subscribe. See you guys in the next video.